Hello. Today's Thursday, and as you know, that means there is an abbreviated slate in the NBA. Just 2 games tonight, but I'm here once again, your host, Big Italy 42, bringing you the Daily Fantasy Cafe NBA podcast. I'm going to discuss a little bit about DraftKings and FanDuel today on this small slate. Mostly just recap some action last night and touch on some guys you might want to be targeting moving forward. Last night, as you know, unless you're living under a rock, Russell Westbrook coming back after facial surgery to a monster. Enormous line last night. 16 of 33, 49 points, 16 rebounds, 10 assists, his 4th straight double-double. It was good for over 87 fantasy points on FanDuel and over 95 on DraftKings. Yes, that is not a typo. 87 and 95 respectively. So one of the best games we have seen in the daily fantasy world ever since its inception. So incredible line there. Another huge line in that same game, Isaiah Canaan, right around minimum price. 8 of 13 from 3, 31.7 rebounds, 6 assists, and a steal. He had over 50 fantasy points as well. So if you had him, obviously very low owns, 15 times his salary at least, depending on what site you played him on. Jason Richardson was a popular punt play, and by that I mean popular on the leaderboard because he was less than 2% owned in most of the big contests. 29.6 rebounds, 3 assists, and a steal. Was huge for some players who finished high in the money, so congratulations to anyone who played him. Dion Waiters off the bench for OKC, 20 and 10 with 3 assists, so nice game for him as well. Phoenix and Orlando last night, Brandon Knight outshining Eric Bledsoe, and in fact taking more than twice as many shots. 15 shots for Brandon Knight, 28.7 rebounds. 7 assists and 3 steals. Eric Bledsoe just 7 shots from the field, but nice stat line. 13 points, 9 assists, 7 rebounds. Close to a triple-double there. PJ Tucker, another nice night after a slow start. 19 points, 5 rebounds, 3 steals. And on the Orlando side, one real bright spot, Victor Oladipo. Talked about him yesterday as a cash game play, and he obviously was an elite tournament play as well. 38 points, 4 rebounds, 3 assists, 3 steals. Huge performance from there. I know a lot of people were on DeMar DeRozan as the popular play, and rightfully so. I was on him myself with Kyle Lowry out once again, but Oladipo ended up being the play at shooting guard. Sacramento, San Antonio, not much to talk about here. Rudy Gay, DeMarcus Cousins combined 9 for 28, 24 points. Blowout win here for San Antonio. Kawhi Leonard, very efficient, 9 for 11, 21 points and 5 rebounds, 1 assist and a steal. That's about it for this one. Pretty ugly game from start to finish. Utah and Boston, yet another ugly game. This one was ugly but close, but very low scoring. We've seen Utah playing great defense recently, and bright spot once again, Rudy Gobert, 10 points, 16 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, and 3 blocks. So he was the guy that paid off his price tag once again last night. Don't be afraid to play him in any matchup. He seems to be able to play up to the level of any competition, and we've seen a good matchup last night, but the night before against Marc Gasol, nice line. So definitely a great target moving forward until his price gets up too high. I believe he's a little over 7K on FanDuel right now. So starting to get up there, but definitely still playable at that price. Isaiah Thomas for Boston. Lone bright spot for a terrible performance for Boston. 21.7 assists and 3 rebounds. Charlotte at Brooklyn. Charlotte had to control this one the entire way. Mo Williams 14 and 14 with 3 rebounds in just 31 minutes. Only 1 turnover, so an impressive performance from him. Yet another double-double for Michael Kidd-Gilchrist, 10 and 13. So he's been, as I mentioned yesterday, great cash game play. Not a guy with a huge ceiling for tournaments, but safe play there at a small forward for you. Cleveland, Toronto, LeBron James, incredibly efficient once again. 29 points, 14 assists, 6 rebounds. Kyrie Irving, 26 and 8 with 2 rebounds. And on the Toronto side, we saw Jose Valanciunas, 26 and 11. And then DeMar DeRozan, 25 points, not much else. The Carmelo line there for him, pretty much all points. Lou Williams, 26 points off the bench, as we may have expected with no Kyle Lowry. Memphis at Houston coming up next. We had Marc Gasol with the best game for Memphis, 21.7 rebounds, 6 assists. His price is really fair around the industry, mid 7,000, so he's a great cash game play still. James Harden, just 18 points, but he did have 13 assists and 4 rebounds. Terrence Jones continued to play well. 21 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 blocks, and a steal. So his price definitely getting up there as well, but more affordable right now on FanDuel than DraftKings. I believe he was 6.5 compared to 7 on DraftKings. So look at him moving forward, but be a little cautious with that price before it gets too high there. Denver and Minnesota, Will Barton came back after a subpar performance 2 games ago. 30 minutes, he had 17 points, 6 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals. So nice value there once again last night. And Kenneth Faried, the manimal, seems like he finally has some life breathed into him. Feels like he has a role and a huge performance again. 18 and 14. Filled up the stat sheet. 2 assists, 2 steals, and 2 blocks as well. So he was right around $5K last night. If you had him, he crushed his salary. He was a great play. Detroit, New Orleans, the other big story here. Monroe and Drummond, Greg Monroe, Andre Drummond, each with decent games. They combined for 26 and 33. Both those guys were nice plays at their price tags under 8K. But the real story here, Anthony Davis, the brow, 17 of 30 from the field, had never actually taken more than 24 shots in a game before last night. And this is something that I and many other DFS players have been waiting for, to unleash him, especially in a great matchup against Detroit. And we saw it last night. 39 points, 13 rebounds, 8 block shots, 2 assists, 3 steals, and he had a monster game. Almost 80 fantasy points last night on FanDuel and over 80 on DraftKings. So did see a couple lineups out there with Westbrook and Anthony Davis, both of whom were under 10% owned in just about every contest. So you had those two guys. It didn't much matter what the rest of your team did because you were looking at 170 plus right there. 160 right around with those two guys. So unbelievable performances from those two. Lakers in Miami last night. Dwayne Wade continued to play well. 25, 6, and 5 for him. Hassan Whiteside was the big story. Top scoring center on the night. 18 points, 25 boards, and 4 blocks. Over 50 fantasy points on both the major sites there. Goran Dragic played well. 21.6 assists, 4 rebounds, 3 steals, and a block. So a nice filled-up stat line there for Dragic. Jeremy Lin, not quite the 40-plus fantasy point performance we've seen the last few days, but 12 points, 9 assists, 4 steals, and a couple rebounds was more than enough to pay off that minuscule price tag, especially on DraftKings where he was 4,100 last night. So hopefully you went ahead and rolled with him once again. Ed Davis and Jordan Hill both with double-doubles off the bench for the Lakers, but not reading too much into that. Too much unpredictability for me there. Golden State and Milwaukee. Big bright spot here was Golden State. Draymond Green, we've seen these big games from him. He had one last night. 23 points, 12 rebounds, 5 assists, 3 steals, and 3 blocks. Led some people into some big money last night. So if you had Draymond Green, outscored all other small forwards, and I know he's a power forward on DraftKings. Obviously didn't outscore Anthony Davis, but very nice performance from him last night. Not much on the Milwaukee side. Pretty spread out value there. Ursan Ilyasova had a double-double, and that's about it on their end. Portland and the Los Angeles Clippers. This game went into overtime, changing a lot of fortunes, being the last game of the night. A lot of money won and lost in the last few minutes of this one. LaMarcus Aldridge, a bad shooting night, but 29 and 9 for him. Damian Lillard, also a poor shooting night, but 18 rebounds for the point guard last night. So he managed a decent amount of value despite a terrible shooting night. Nicholas Batum, once again under-owned, once again performing well. 27 and 8 with 2 blocks and a steal. So he was a great value, and he's coming up again tonight in action on this 2-game slate. Chris Paul, huge performance. Obviously overshadowed by Russell Westbrook, but 36 points, 6 rebounds, 12 assists, and a steal. He obviously paid off his price tag, was a very popular play, and for good reason. JJ Redick was the other bright spot. 26 points, 4 rebounds, an assist, and 2 steals. So if you had yourself some JJ Redick, like I mentioned yesterday, without Jamal Crawford, he was a great play, especially on DraftKings, and he definitely paid off his price tag. All right, we're going to look forward to tonight. Just a 2-game slate, like I mentioned, but you've got Oklahoma City at Chicago as your first game of the night, and obviously you're coming off of the huge Russell Westbrook game last night. You're not going to see a repeat of that, but 2-point spread for Oklahoma City, 199.5 point total. On a 2-game slate, there is a 0% chance I will not be playing Russell Westbrook in all formats if I'm playing on this slate. $12,000 on FanDuel, $11,300 on DraftKings. Not even close. He's the top play of the night. If you fade him tonight on a 2-game slate, I don't know how I can help you. Good luck. Good luck with your money if you do that. I don't think that that's a scenario that's going to pay off for you too many times right now. Other point guard options, there's not a lot. You're looking at Damian Lillard as the number 2 option. 8,700 on FanDuel. 8,100, a little bit more affordable on DraftKings. Coming off that bad shooting performance last game, but back-to-back 40 fantasy point performances the 2 times before that. So going up against Dallas, Rajon Rondo, none of those point guards are known as very good defenders, and in fact, pretty lazy defenders. So I think he's in play. Not sure I'm going to be paying up for him. I'll get to that in a minute. Rajon Rondo in play, I guess, in tournaments. No way I'd play him if I'm playing cash games tonight. 5,400 on FanDuel, 57 on DraftKings. Over 20 fantasy points in 2 straight games, so I'm still not buying that he even has much of a floor. He obviously has the upside. We know he's a great passer, can distribute the ball. But no Chandler Parsons in there again, so not a lot of shooters on the wing. It's a pass for me. Maybe if I make multiple tournament lineups, I'll get him in there. But the one other guy I'm looking at point guard tonight, obviously Aaron Brooks, 4,800 on FanDuel. He's listed at 5,400 on DraftKings, so obviously a much better play on FanDuel there if you're looking for a cheap point guard. But that is it as far as the point guard position. Moving on to shooting guard. The de facto top play, obviously with Jimmy Butler out, is going to be Monte Ellis. He's listed at 6,800 on DraftKings, 67 on FanDuel, so pretty similar prices. A little bit better of a play on FanDuel. You're almost going to have to pay up for him as one of your 2 shooting guards on FanDuel. Your other options, you're looking at Wesley Matthews, 6,400 and 56 on DraftKings. Aaron Aflalo, no thanks. Deion Waiters coming off a good performance. He's really cheap, 4,400 on FanDuel and sitting at 41 on DraftKings. So definitely a guy that I'll be targeting there. Tony Snell, great play on FanDuel, 3,800. He's getting big minutes, especially with Jimmy Butler out now. Not a huge performer, but he does get a plethora of minutes, 40, 33, and 31 in his last 3. Just 3,800 on FanDuel, listed as a small forward on DraftKings, which is the reason why I'm not going to talk about him here. If you want to go really deep at shooting guard at FanDuel tonight, don't. I will not be going deeper than that. No reason to do that, only a 2-game slate. A lot of concentrated value here tonight. So, moving on to small forward. Top 2 options price-wise on FanDuel out with injuries. Kevin Durant, Chandler Parsons, obviously. Nick Batum becomes a de facto play there. You have to play 2 small forwards, so Nick Batum becomes the number 1 play at 5,600. And if you look at his price over on DraftKings, he's at 55. So once again, pretty similar. Al-Farouq Aminu, 4,600 on both sites. I think he's a fine play without Chandler Parsons in the lineup. I don't like looking much deeper than these guys. You can look at a guy like Mike Dunleavy, I guess, as a single bullet if you have a bunch of tournament lineups. But he's not a guy that I'm a big fan of. Doesn't produce much. He does play over 30 minutes a game each of the last 3. But you look at his point totals, incredibly inconsistent. 39.1, 9.3, 17.6. That's a no thanks for me unless I'm making a bunch of lineups. And if you're looking deeper, not touching Richard Jefferson and certainly not playing any of these other bench players down below that. At power forward tonight, you've really got 2 top options. You're looking at Pau Gasol, 9,400 on DraftKings and 9,400 on FanDuel. And LaMarcus Aldridge, who's 9,100 on DraftKings, 98 on FanDuel. I like Aldridge as my top play. Reason being for that, I'll get to that in a minute with center. Aldridge getting the matchup against Dirk Nowitzki, a soft defender. He should have his way with him down low. Pau Gasol, a little bit tougher of a matchup. He's going to get matched up with Serge Ibaka. Obviously, both of them are in play. I think depending on the site, I'll probably go with the cheaper option between the 2. Serge Ibaka, 8,200 on FanDuel, and looking over on DraftKings, he's at 8,000. I think he's in play, certainly, but I would rather pay a little bit more for one of those 2 top guys. Dirk Nowitzki, a fine cash game play, but real tough matchup against Aldridge. 6,200 on DraftKings and 63 on FanDuel. When you're looking cheaper, obvious play, should be the most popular play in the day outside of Russell Westbrook, I would assume. Nikola Mirotic, coming off yet another big performance. And it was 32.6 fantasy points on FanDuel. Game before, 39.8. He's 4,700 on FanDuel, and on DraftKings, he's 5,700. So a little bit more expensive on DraftKings. I'm not concerned about that. I will still be playing him. If he has himself a 30-plus fantasy point output tonight, and you do not have him on a 2-game slate, especially being a value play that could hurt you quite a bit. So not a fade that I recommend, but I get it if you're playing multiple tournament lineups. You're looking deeper at power forward. You could take a shot with a guy like Mitch McGary, but as we've seen, very inconsistent. You look at his last few game logs, 26, 2, 33, 1, 18 fantasy points. So huge risk there, but he's got a decent amount of upside. I'm not going any further down than that. You've got Amari Stoudemire, who you could play. He's getting a decent amount of minutes, 20 and 23 over his last two, playing fairly well. So I could see him as a punt option, but at 5,100 on FanDuel, not a big fan. I would much rather play him at 3,600 on DraftKings. Biggest significant difference for a punt play there on the night, so I think he's a much, much better play there on DraftKings. Moving over to center, there's an obvious top option for me. It's Joakim Noah, 7,400 on FanDuel, 7,400 also on DraftKings, and he gets the matchup down low against Enes Kanter, possibly Steven Adams if he ends up making his return today. Noah is the facilitator a lot of times in this offense now. Without Jimmy Butler, without Derrick Rose, he's been tremendously consistent. Last 4 games, 36, 38, 36, 45 fantasy points. He has double-digit rebounds in 7 straight games. He's playing very well. He's a guy that doesn't need to shoot the ball to hit value. He passes the ball well. He blocks shots. I don't think it's close. I think he's the top option. If you're playing cash games tonight, I think you need to have Joakim Noah. If you're looking for other options, Tyson Chandler, consider probable. He should be back tonight. 6,500 on DraftKings, 61 on FanDuel. I think he's a fine option. I'm not investing too much in Enes Kanter. I think he's fine for a tournament. I would still just rather pay up for Joakim Noah. If you want a really cheap guy, and this would be FanDuel specific, you're looking at Robin Lopez is $3,800 on DraftKings and $5,000 on FanDuel. So obviously a significant difference there. But little known facts to some new DFS players. Dallas, one of the worst rebounding teams in the league, even with Tyson Chandler in the lineup. So you can get Robin Lopez, who's played 30-plus minutes in 2 straight games, over 23 fantasy points each time. I think he could be a great value for you there on DraftKings. But like I said, if I'm playing cash, still sticking with Joakim Noah, I think Lopez is a fine flex option. As you're looking at some contests for tonight, you've got some interesting ones from DraftKings. You've got the 100K 4-point play, as the title says, $4 buy-in. So certainly an interesting game there. Unique little $4 buy-in we haven't seen. There's a $20 crossover, $80,000 in the prize pool there. You've got some massive double ups at $2 and $5 and $10 and $25. Some satellites still to win main event tickets for tomorrow. 25 cents, $2, $5. And as you're looking at FanDuel, there's some nice tournaments there as well. You've got, of course, the Slam. The Slam has still, despite only a 2-game slate, $250,000 prize pool. So a little under half full right now as I speak. You've got the SWAT at $1. You've got the dribbler single entry is $1. You've got the assist is a $5 tournament. So a whole bunch of different ways you can go tonight despite a 2-game slate. Get yourself some action. Not a terrible 2-game slate. Not quite as good as the one we had Sunday morning, but definitely a playable slate in a small amount. I won't be going too crazy. I will not likely be playing any cash games, but definitely some options tonight. Hopefully this all helps you out a little bit, and good luck in your contest. Make sure you check out some information we have on dailyfantasycafe.com. We've got some minutes rotation watches. We have some previews coming up for the MLB season from Josh Shepherdson, and we've got some things like the Pulse from Spencer Limbach, who joined me yesterday. He'll be back again tomorrow, and he highlighted some key things yesterday. For instance, Alex Lynn, he said, watch out for foul trouble in this matchup. He got himself in some early foul trouble and killed a lot of teams, a lot of cash games. So got a lot of great content. Check it out, and I will be back with you tomorrow. Peace.